I was really enthusiastic about Robin Hobb going into Assassin's Quest, right? I gave pretty reasonable, fair, positive reviews towards the first two books in the Farseer trilogy, right? I liked Assassin's Apprentice and I liked Royal Assassin, right? I don't know if either of them are better than the other. I think I came away with like very strong opinions about them both. I emphasized that like Robin Hobb had very severe weaknesses, but as a creator, I think she did a really good job creating like setting up the setting and like creating really interesting relationships between the characters and doing a really good job setting a unique tone, right? I There are like very specific scene sequences from those first two books that are spectacular, honestly. Like I hesitate to call them like masterful because of like just all the other issues that surround them, but like there are definitely like flashes of brilliance in the first two books. Like I really enjoyed them a lot, and I think even now I would still recommend them as a really good, interesting little fantasy story. Like I think they do a fantastic job of just like setting things up, setting the stage, introducing all these concepts, and like making them feel relatively grounded and interesting, right? Like it is so much more enjoyable than something like George R. R. Martin's work, right? It feels so much more relatable. It feels so much more real in a lot of ways, right? Characters feel like actual people in it. Like again, I really enjoyed Robin Hobb. Like for the first two books, I was not enthusiastic about the third one going into it because like the second one had such a weird ending and like things go bad and it's just one of those things where you're just like, okay, what's going to happen next? What's the big deal? Like, how are they going to resolve all these situations, right? And Assassin's Quest does a terrible job out of all of that. And I really thought it would, right? Like I really thought that she would struggle handling this, right? To me, it seems like a worse version of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, right? Where like J.K. Rowling, set like six books, right? She set up the formula, right? Like, oh yeah, we go to Hogwarts, we solve a mystery, we go on adventures, and then we go back for the summer, right? In the seventh book, what happens? Voldemort's taking over. Everything's going downhill. Dumbledore's dead, right? And then you have like characters making all these really crazy radical decisions that nobody saw coming, right? Like before publication, nobody was expecting them to drop out of Hogwarts and like go fight Voldemort, under the nose of the Ministry and the Order of the Phoenix and like everyone else, right? Everyone thought they would be going back for their final year, right? Like, so to see like Rowling take such a radical departure from her established formula, like it was very unpopular at the time, but looking back on it, and actually I felt this way when I first read it as well, it felt really daring and very well executed, right? A phenomenal, uh, it was a phenomenally executed. Robin Hobb tries something similar, right? Where like Buckkeep has been like torn to pieces. Regal has taken over, Verity's gone, right? He moves locations, right? He completely ignores the suffering of his people and like moves further inland, away from the problem, right? Like, and Fitz is left for dead. He's brought back through like the sheer power of the wit, right? He comes back, Burrick and Shade find him and they revive him. And then, like, there's this really weird, big question of, like, what do we do now? Like, what now? And that is like the big like question in regards to this novel. Like, what now? Like, it seems like Robin Hobb like really wanted to write this story about some guy with no purpose, just getting into all these like situations before finally like settling on like, oh, we'll just go do this, right? Like, to me, like the first half of this is just spontaneous, just all over the place, like ridiculous. Like, first he's here, then he's there. Now he's trying to kill Regal, and now he's like going off into the mountains, and it's like it feels so sloppily done, right? Like, there is no clear plan. There is no like idea. Like, it feels like that's the feeling she wants to evoke from you, right? Is that like Fitz has no idea what he's doing, but it's like it it should have been like fairly straightforward. Is like, kill Regal. Like, what exactly is so complex about this? Like, Regal is causing all these problems, right? He did all these terrible stuff. He did like he's like not fixing the problem. Like, the kingdom has fallen to ruin in part because of his poor leadership. But like, not that like Shrewd was a great king either. But like, that's neither here nor there. But like, again, like, that should, I think, have been the plot. Is that like, yeah, I have to go kill Regal, right? That's probably not in the best interests of like the people around me, and like there's going to be like the issue of succession and stuff like that, but he's not my king, right? Like, this should be where he puts his assassin skills to the test and goes after this guy who desperately needs to be killed, right? That should have been what this was about, right? And it's not, right? Because Robin Hobb, like, she seems unwilling to really commit to the idea of like Fitz being an assassin, right? She does this thing where like she really wants to write him as a normal person, right? Like, she does this thing where like she focuses on the romantic drama and his like loyalty to Verity, and like oh, he's a bastard, oh, so he's mistreated at court. Like, she tries all this stuff, and I'm just like, well, okay, but he's an assassin. Like, that's what he was supposed to do. Like, the first book set this up really well, where, like, he's supposed to kill for the king, right? He's being trained for this purpose, right? Like, this is basically what he's doing, right? Like, this is, it's so frustrating. Like, it's one of those things, right, where the author doesn't seem like she knows what an assassin does. Like, she does all these things like, oh, people at court are mean to me. Like, yeah, like, why doesn't he just do what Shade does and just go into the shadows, go into hiding, and just like exist, like, outside the realms of the proper court, right? Like, again, like, it's just like, why exactly are these is this an issue, right? Like, you keep seeing these plot developments, these threads that feel like they really shouldn't be a problem, right? Like, again, I don't know. It's really frustrating. Like, I don't care for like the weird. The story doesn't seem as if like it knows how to introduce new characters, right? It doesn't know how to use like the pre-established like existing ones, right? I have never cared for Molly, the love interest. Like, I think she's basic, and that Fitz is simping for her for no reason. Like, he should have just married Celerity, but like, anyway, like, can't stand Molly, like I don't understand why Burrick and Shade just left. Like, that was contrived. They just left him in a house, like a shack on his own, like, hoping he just gets over like the trauma of being almost killed or something. When like there's all this like critical all these critical things that need to be done. Like you just you just read this and you just get like frustrated by like almost all the characters. And like the second half in particular is particularly bad about this because like you are spending time with a bunch of characters you don't care about, right? I don't like the Fool. I don't like Starling. She serves no purpose. And honestly, I think she might be like a stand-in for like Robin Hood herself, right? Robin, Starling, they're both birds. Like, come on. You have like Kettle, the old lady. The Fool's with them too. I think I mentioned him already. The Fool is like single-handedly, objectively speaking, completely 100% the worst thing about these books. Like absolutely nothing of value was gained by having the Fool as like a prominent character. Like even from the beginning, I'm just like, what is this man doing to like to like shove himself into these like situations? Like, oh, he shows up and says something vague, ooh, but he's my friend, ooh, no, he's fucking not, no, he's not. Like he's some weird guy who has like no bearing on the plot at all. Oh, but he can see the future. I don't care. Like never have, never will. Like I don't understand like Hobbs' fascination with this character. Like she really tries to paint him as like the second most important character, like other than Fitz, right? Like he is like the most prominent secondary character in this. Like more than Shade, more than Burrick, more than like Shrewd Verity, like Patience, like all of these like characters that have so much more to do with Fitz's life. Like, oh, but the fool is the key to all this bullshit. And she like introduces Starling and Kettle to like just endlessly just shill the Fool, like endlessly just talk about like, oh no, this is happening, this is like the second half is like a nightmare to go through because it's just nonstop, just like them walking along a road, but like, oh, it's not just any normal road, it was wrought by the skill, like, which first of all is dumb in general because like the skill has had like clearly defined powers, like it's like this idea that like, ooh, it could do something that we've never seen before. Like it feels contrived, first of all, and it feels like padding almost. Like how often they walk down this road and stress out about like what it's doing to them and like how people can take advantage of the road and like what's at the end of the road. It's like, come on. Like really, like honestly, considering like Fitz is involved with like all three of those annoying characters, like the only character in that party that I am in any way attached to is Ketrican. Ketrican consistently is a likable, interesting character. The only one to be so throughout like the entire thing. Like honestly, the only character who's likable, and she's not even in the first book, is she? No, no, she must be. Yeah. I don't think she left much of an impression on me in that one, but like, yeah, Ketrican is like consistently great, very consistently great. But of course, even her big moment where she has to tell her husband that she lost his child, like it's completely botched by Hobbs' absolutely shit world building. Like, I named our child after the conventions of your kingdom. Sacrifice. Like, what should have been a heart-wrenching moment, an absolutely 10 out of 10 Kino moment, is just ruined by Hobbs' inability to give her characters good names. Like, again, like, all the characters and all the royal characters in this, like, in the Six Duchy Kingdom, like, in Buckkeep, like, they all have these, like, names after, like, characteristics, right? Shrewd, Verity, Regal, Patience, right? And all of them sound ridiculous. And all of them are just absurd. And it's been, like, the big thing about this trilogy from the beginning that I just cannot stand. Like, Hobb sucks at naming things. Like, she's the worst. Like, I don't think I've ever read anybody who's, like, come up with, like, worse names for characters. Like, it's awful. Fitz Chivalry. Really? That's what you're going to name your protagonist? It's like, it's so ridiculous. And I hate it so much. Like, I cannot stand it. I cannot stand it. Especially since she gives her, like, good characters, like really good characteristics, and then she gives like the more shady ones, like weird ones, like shrewd and like regal. Yeah, sure. Okay. It is like really. But yeah, um, definitely a disappointment. Yeah, reading this, like this is, I think, the worst out of the trilogy for sure. Is it going to like kill my enthusiasm for like Robin Hobb in general? I don't know. Like I think I would still recommend the first two. And honestly, like reading the third out of necessity is just I don't know. Like there are more books set in the setting, I believe. So like I don't know. Like maybe she gets better. Again, I don't want to see the fool again. That's for sure. Like again, apparently she's obsessed with the thing. Like, but anyway, like, I'm appalled at what a disappointment this was. Like, what a step down from the first two for sure. I am just like very disappointed in this. Hopefully, there are better books in the setting. Hopefully, like we see something new. I don't know. Like, I still, as much as disappointed as I am, like it's not all bad, but yeah, definitely could have been a lot better.